Some of you may be wondering how to begin work on task number 4, which is to read some pseudocode, and based on what you've read, you need to implement and write a program. I'm hoping that by the end of this video, you'll have an idea of some of the concepts that you can actually use, in addition to how a programmer, whether that programmer is a novice programmer, someone who is new, in your case, or someone who maybe even a little bit more experienced, goes about finding information to help you resolve a challenge. Okay, so without further ado, let's switch over to our Replit environment. And you can see here that the pseudocode is 9 lines of code, and typically what you would see is the number of lines of pseudocode that you have will reflect in the actual lines of code in your program. Okay, that is a typical scenario, but it's not always the case, and it depends totally on what program you're writing, okay, and how efficient you are writing your code. So we can see here that this code here does something. What it does is it looks through a range of numbers from 1 to 100, and then based on the number and whether or not it's divisible by another number, something is output. Okay, so we can see here in the first line of the pseudocode that we're using a for loop. Okay, and it's looking through a range of numbers. Now we can easily do this using a for loop, or we can switch over to doing this using a while loop. Now it makes sense to do this using a while loop because our last exercise, previous exercise that we actually did, the task number 3, was related to using while loops. Okay, so let's just kind of go over how you implement a while loop. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a variable here. We're going to set this variable to 1, and then we're going to have our while loop here. So we'll say while number, and then we're going to give this a condition. So while number is less than or equal to, and let's just do this condition here, which is 100. Okay, so while number is less than or equal to 100, we want to do something. So what we're going to do is we're going to print out the number, and then at the same time, we are going to increment the number by 1. Okay, so just so you know what this code is doing, a variable number set to 1, and then on line number 3, we have number here is substituted with the actual number. So it says while 1 is less than or equal to 100. Well, we know that 1 is less than or equal to 100. 100 is the ceiling, so we know that 1 is less than 100, and then what will happen is it will print the number, and then it will increment the number by 1. So 1 plus 1 is now 2. Then it'll go back up to line number 3, and it'll say, okay, well, is 2 less than or equal to 100? Yes, it is. Print number 2. 2 increment by 1 is now 3. Go back up. Okay, so is 3 less than equal to 100? Yes, it is. It's going to print out the number 3. Then 3 is going to be incremented by 1. Now 3 is 4, and so on and so forth until it gets to the last number. Okay, so in this case, it's going to be 100. If you were to run this, you should just print out all numbers from 1 through 100. Okay, so that's the first part of the program, and it's the kind of code that you will need to use in order to address this challenge. The next part is this line here, which is quite interesting, and the line is essentially if I, now I in this case is the number, whatever the number is from 1 through 100, if I is divisible by 3 and I is divisible by 5. Well, that really kind of gets me thinking. I need to know how to check to see if a certain number is divisible by another number. So what I'm going to do is just do a quick search, and then we just search for Python divisible number check. Okay, and the first result looks promising. You can see here it says you can simply use the modulus operator to check divisibility. For example, n, which is our number, whatever the number is, percentage 2, this is the number that we're dividing by, is equal to 0. Now 0 in this case is the remainder. So a number, when it's divisible, leaves no remainder. Okay, so what we're saying is if whatever the number that we're dividing by leaves no remainder, then that number is exactly divisible by that number. Okay, so let's just kind of put this into action and test this out. I'm going to remove this bit of code here, and I'm going to set number to 10, and I'm going to just write a simple conditional check. So if we say if number, okay, and if we go back to here, we need to use the percentage symbol here, the modulus operator here. If number modulus And in this case, we're checking to see if it's divisible by 3. So if number modulus 3, 3 is equal to 0. Remember, the 0 here is a check to see what if we're having a remainder. So if number modulus 3, if the number divided by 3 is equal to 0, if there's no remainder, then we're going to say the print number is divisible by 3, and then we're going to say else print number is not divisible by 3. Okay, so again, we know that 10 cannot be divided equally into 3. It leaves a remainder. Okay, so what will happen is it will kind of go through, it will go on to line number 3 and it will check to see if there's a remainder. If there is a remainder, this condition will not be evaluated to true, and it's going to go on to the else statement, and this will be evaluated to true. Okay, so if we were to run this, as we expect, it should say the number is not divisible by 3. Let's run this again. Okay, so it says here, if we just ignore this error message, I'm not sure what's happening there, but if we just ignore that, I'm going to try clearing this here and try running this again. Yeah, there you go. So it's saying here 10 is not divisible by 3. Okay, so if we, let's just say, change this to 9 now. Now we know that 9 divided by 3 leaves no remainder. Okay, you can equally divide the number 9 into 3. So what will happen is we'll go to this line of code here, and we'll see if there's a remainder value. If there is no remainder value, which in this case there will be no remainder value, then it's going to evaluate this condition to true, and it's going to say print the number, whatever the number is divisible by 3. Okay, and this part of the statement will not be evaluated at all. So if you were to run this, it says 9 is divisible by 3. So that's how you actually check to see if the divisibility of a specific number. Now, that's not the only thing we need to do, because we need to pass 2 conditions to this if statement, to this part of this conditional statement here. We need to check to see if the number is divisible by 3 and if the number is divisible by 5. Well, this takes me to my kind of next level of thinking. How do I use a logical AND statement? How do I pass multiple conditions to a statement, a conditional statement? So what we need to do is we just type in Python logical and there's lots of different results here. The website that I like to use is W3 Schools here, this one here. So if I click on this, you'll see that you can learn a lot of other things as far as related to Python. And I'm going to scroll down here, and you can kind of see we've used the equality operator here as well, the comparison operator here. But we want to go down to here, logical operator here. Python logical operators, and it says returns true if both statements are true. So essentially we will need to use and it gives you an example here. So x is less than 5 and x is less than 10. Okay, so it's the and operator. So what you need to do is you need to basically modify this conditional statement to make sure that it's assigning multiple conditions. It's looking at multiple conditions. Okay, and I'll kind of got you started off here, but I'll let you kind of figure out the rest and how to actually put that in. You may want to kind of revisit how to do if statements. You can see here, because you need to have multiple statements here, multiple kind of conditions, and you can actually, on the same resource, W3 Schools, if you go to if else, you can actually see how to use if else statements. One of the things it reminds you here is to make sure that your indentation is correct. And we spoke about this at the start of our journey with Python. Just make sure that you are kind of indenting your code. So we can see here this is indented correctly, because this print statement is falling underneath this if statement here, and this print statement is under this else. If we were to kind of remove the space here, you'll see that the code has an issue with running, right? It's not running at all because it's saying that there's an indentation error. So just make sure that you are being mindful of that. Okay, so I hope that helps, and thank you for watching this short video. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out.